The students in the chemistry lab froze. Glass tubes clinked as one nearly slipped from a trembling hand. All eyes locked on the shocking scene unfolding at the center of the room. A tall white student known around school for his arrogance and mean-spirited jokes had his hand wrapped tightly around the throat of the new black teacher. His grip was firm, his sneer filled with malice, and his words dripped with venom. "You don't belong here," he spat, pushing her back against the counter. "People like you shouldn't be teaching us. This is our school." Gasps spread across the classroom. Some students reached for their phones. Others sat frozen, torn between fear and disbelief. No one expected a teacher to be humiliated this way, especially not her, the calm, reserved, almost mysterious woman who had started teaching only weeks ago. To everyone else, she was just Ms. Carter, a new science instructor. But what the bully didn't know, what none of them could possibly imagine, was the truth. This wasn't just a teacher. This wasn't just a woman who had studied formulas and chemical reactions. Before stepping into the classroom, she had lived a life most soldiers only dreamed of surviving. Years of grueling training, sleepless nights under gunfire, missions that demanded courage most could never muster. And here was a teenage boy, cocky, spoiled, and cruel, making the grave mistake of putting his hands on the wrong person. That day, the school would discover a side of Miss Carter that would silence every whisper of doubt. And the bully? He was about to learn what it meant to awaken a past forged in discipline, steel, and unbreakable willpower. Ms. Carter wasn't just a teacher by profession, she was a survivor. Born in Georgia, raised in a modest family, she grew up with the firm belief that respect was earned, not given. Her parents instilled values of dignity, perseverance, and strength. But financial struggles followed them everywhere. Her father worked double shifts as a mechanic. Her mother took night jobs cleaning offices, and still bills piled up. From an early age, Ms. Carter learned what it meant to fight for a better future. She studied harder than most kids her age, refusing to let her circumstances define her. But there was another fire in her heart, discipline and service. At 18, instead of heading straight to college, she enlisted in the U.S. Army. The decision shocked her community. A young black woman barely out of high school, choosing combat boots over dorm rooms? Many doubted her, whispered that she wouldn't last a week. But she proved them all wrong. Through grueling drills, merciless training, and long nights of exhaustion, she emerged not just as a soldier, but as a leader. Her peers respected her sharp instincts, her calm under pressure, and her ability to inspire others when everything seemed impossible. She served multiple tours overseas, earning medals and commendations. Yet she never bragged, never demanded recognition. She simply did her duty. When she finally retired from active service, she wanted a quieter life. Teaching had always been her hidden dream. She wanted to pass on knowledge, discipline, and critical thinking to the next generation. So she became Ms. Carter, the science teacher. Her classroom was her new battlefield, though she taught with kindness, patience, and calm authority. But not everyone respected her. The school had a handful of entitled students, kids who grew up in wealth, arrogance, and prejudice. Among them was one in particular, Brad Simmons. Brad was the kind of student teachers dreaded. Charming to parents, disruptive in class. He mocked classmates, bullied the quiet ones, and made racially charged comments he thought were jokes. Most teachers avoided conflict with him because of his father's influence and influential businessmen who donated generously to the school. From day one, Brad disliked Ms. Carter. He didn't like her calm confidence, her refusal to be intimidated, or the fact that she didn't let him slide with disrespect. And in his arrogance, he made one of the gravest mistakes of his young life. It started with subtle insults. "Bet you didn't even go to a real college. Shouldn't you be teaching at some rundown school, not here? You talk all disciplined, but I bet you've never even been in a fight." At first, Ms. Carter ignored him, knowing bullies thrived on attention. But when he started targeting other students with racist remarks, she stepped in firmly. "Brad, enough," she said one day, her voice low but commanding. "We don't tolerate disrespect in this classroom. To anyone." The class fell silent. They weren't used to teachers challenging Brad. His smirk faltered, replaced by a flash of anger. Over the next week, his resentment grew. He disrupted experiments, mocked her lessons, and spread rumors. Still, Miss Carter remained calm, correcting him when necessary, refusing to let him control the room. But on that fateful afternoon in the lab, Brad finally crossed the line. She had been explaining a chemical reaction when he deliberately knocked over a beaker, spilling liquid across the table. Laughter erupted from his small circle of friends. Ms. Carter calmly approached him. "Brad, clean it up and sit down." His face darkened. "Don't tell me what to do." "Brad..." And then it happened. He lunged forward, his hand wrapping around her throat. Gasps filled the room. Students froze, unable to believe what they were seeing. "Listen to me," he hissed, tightening his grip. "People like you don't tell me anything. You hear me? You're nothing but a..." He didn't finish the sentence. Because in that moment, something in Ms. Carter's eyes changed. Gone was the calm, patient teacher. What replaced it was something colder, sharper, forged from years of battlefield instinct. With lightning speed, Ms. Carter's hand shot up. In one swift motion, she twisted Brad's wrist, breaking his grip. Before he could react, she pivoted her body using his momentum against him. In seconds, the bully who thought he held power was slammed against the lab counter, his arm pinned painfully behind his back, his face twisted in shock and fear. "Don't you ever put your hands on me or anyone else again." Ms. Carter's voice was steady, controlled, but laced with fire. The class erupted into murmurs, some even cheering quietly. No one had ever seen Brad overpowered like this. "Who do you think you are?" Brad spat, though his voice cracked with panic. Ms. Carter leaned closer, her words low enough for only him to hear. "I am someone who's seen real battles. Compared to that, you're nothing but a scared little boy." Security was called, and within minutes, Brad was escorted out, red-faced and humiliated. His father rushed to the school later, demanding Ms. Carter's suspension. But the witnesses, all 30 students, told the truth. They defended her, their voices united. Brad was the aggressor, and Ms. Carter only defended herself. As rumors spread, whispers turned into respect. Teachers who once tiptoed around Brad felt empowered. Students who had been victims of his cruelty felt vindicated. But the biggest shock came when Ms. Carter's past came to light. The school board, reviewing the incident, learned about her military service, medals, commendations, leadership roles. This wasn't just a teacher. They had a decorated veteran guiding their students. The narrative shifted instantly. Brad was no longer the untouchable bully. Ms. Carter became the symbol of dignity, discipline, and unshakable strength. In the weeks that followed, the atmosphere at school transformed. Brad faced disciplinary action, his father's influence powerless, against the overwhelming evidence and witness accounts. For the first time, he had to face consequences for his actions. Students began approaching Ms. Carter differently. They looked at her with newfound respect, not just as a teacher, but as someone who had lived through struggles far greater than high school drama. Her classroom became a safe space, a place where every student, regardless of background, knew they'd be protected. Ms. Carter never glorified what happened. When curious students asked, she simply said, "Discipline matters. Respect matters. And no one has the right to make you feel less than who you are." Her quiet strength became legendary in the school halls. Teachers whispered stories about the day the bully met his match. Students shared the tale with awe, their voices filled with pride. As for Brad, he avoided Ms. Carter's class like the plague. His arrogance dimmed, his swagger broken. For the first time, he learned the sting of humility. And Ms. Carter? She carried on teaching, calm, firm, and dignified as ever. That day, the entire school learned a lesson no textbook could ever teach. Never underestimate someone based on race, gender, or appearance, because behind the quiet smile of a teacher might stand a warrior who has faced storms you could never imagine. What about you? If you saw someone being bullied or disrespected like this, would you stay silent? Or would you speak up?